Brian Davis, Home Improved Man. This is a common problem that you have if you've ever moved a door or changed hinges or taken the door on and off without pulling the pin out. You have to move the latch, and any of these things that deal with doors where you take the screw in and out a couple times, or you have to move the screw just a little bit, and suddenly you find that you can't get the screw back into the hole. So how do you do that? And this is really addressing two issues. One is when the wood is stripped and it won't bite on the threads of the screw, or you need to put a screw very close to an existing hole but not in the hole. Either way, this will address the problem. What we need to do is to fill the hole, the existing hole, and then essentially start over again, whether you're re-drilling that hole and putting the screw in the same place or just moving that screw microscopically over. Because if you've ever tried to put a screw in a spot that's very close to a hole, you know that screw wants to move and track into that existing hole. So what we do, or what I have here, if you look, you will see I've got two holes, top and bottom. So 4 holes total. There should only be 2. And worse than that is that I want to put a screw next to those holes, not in the same hole. So the first thing I have to do is I need to fill in those existing holes in a way that so that when the new screw goes in, it won't try and track into that old hole. Even if I were to carefully drill a new spot in right beside one of those places, I'll find that the hole will collapse and the screw will shift over. So I need to fill those holes. What I'm going to do is use toothpicks and wood glue. I'm going to fill in the holes, let the glue dry, and then tomorrow I'll go back and re-drill the holes and I'll be all set. Wood glue. I don't need to go all the way into the hole, just to the point where the old screw would go. If there's some of the toothpick sticking out, that's okay. I can sand it down when I come back. But if I can get it flush, that'll save me some of the trouble later on. And don't be afraid of the wood glue. Use as much, even if it gets a little messy. And then once you've got all the toothpicks set, you can wipe the wood glue away. So, as you can see, holes are filled, glue will dry. Now, when I go to put the new screws in tomorrow, I'm going to pre-drill to make sure the screws go exactly where I want them. All right, it's dried. It is ready to take a screw. And the toothpicks and the glue that I put in there are sitting far enough back, and I know that because I can take my plate, I can put it in place, and it sits smoothly and flush as I want it to. So the next step is to put the screws in. Now, if you've done any work like this before, you know that placing the screws perfectly becomes really, really important. And the reason why is that if the screw comes in off center or twisted, let's see if I can angle it a little better, there we go. As it sets, it'll pull the plate into position because the screw is going to sit flush inside that hole. And so it's really important that we get the screw right in the middle of that hole so that it holds it in the exact place we want it to be. If this shifts around, it can make it difficult for the latch to seat. It can also create a bit of a gap. If this latch is set too far away from the weather stripping, it'll leave a gap in which we don't want in the winter time in particular, but also any other time that we have the temperature inside the house different than the temperature outside. So the way we address that is there's 2 methods. The first method is basic, primitive, yet effective, using a nail. What you do is you put the plate in place where you want it. You make sure that it's set exactly as you want it, tight against the back. And then once you're there, we're going to use the nail and put a little indentation exactly where we want the screw to go into place. Just a little bit of pressure in that exact spot. And even if you're on a painted surface or if you have a rough looking surface you can't see, I can usually move the nail around to find that spot again. If I want to be really certain, I can use a hammer. I can give it a couple taps to get a deep enough hole so that when I put the drill in, because the next step is to drill the hole to ensure that the screw is going to go into the right place. It's not going to go at an angle. I'm going to make sure the drill goes in straight so that the drill will then find that little dimple that I've created in the wood and it'll help me to drill the hole. The second way is to use one of these. And what this does is it's got a bit of a beveled edge up here, and that beveled edge will sit perfectly inside of the bevel of the latch protector. Once I apply the pressure through the drill, there's a drill bit inside of there that's going to extend out and drill the hole exactly in the middle of the plate. This really isn't all that necessary if you're doing a one-time hole, but if you do this this sort of work on a regular basis, whether you're putting in hinges or anything else where you really need a perfectly centered hole for your screw, this is really invaluable. So, I'm all set. Setting this is the most important part to ensure that I have the screw in the right spot. Take my time, get it set. And as you can see, we now have two holes. And you can see where the toothpicks were before. You can see the glue that's gone in there, and you can see that the hole was not distracted by the old holes. It gets put exactly where we need it. We then switch to our screw bit. Oops. Screw bit. And then as the screw goes into the hole, it will pull the plate into the perfect location. I'm not going to go completely deep with just the one. I'm going to set them both first so that it's proximately in the correct location and won't get pulled around back and forth. There we go. That's that. So you can see that the bottom of the plate sits at the bottom of the hole drilled out in the wood behind it. You can see that it's back up against the edge, so it'll sit tight up against the weather stripping. This should be perfect. Perfect. Hope you found that helpful. Like, subscribe. Thanks.